Steve Loomis, Walking That Mile. Now, in a world that's gone completely insane, a couple things we are starting to claw and scratch and fight our way back to some sort of normalcy here. Common sense. That's all I want. Really, that's all I want, some common sense. So a couple of cases, a couple of things that have come up recently that give me some hope that we're headed in the right direction. So one is the Mahmoud, I think that's how you pronounce it. Case Mahmoud versus Taylor, U.S. Supreme Court case. It was in Montgomery County, Maryland. So out of Montgomery County, Maryland. The situation started in November 2022, which is kind of an odd time of the year for this. So the situation is regarding parents' rights to opt their children out of public school lessons involving LGBTQ themed storybooks. So what happened was in November of 2022, Montgomery County Board of Education introduced several storybooks, inclusive children's books, LGBTQ inclusive children's books, into the elementary school language arts curriculum. These were supplemental and were non-mandatory. And I think it's odd that they did this in November of 2022. You know, your school year usually starts in August. So why, August, September, October, November? Why did they decide, why did they come up with November to start implementing these? But they were non-mandatory materials. Initially, parents were notified and could opt their children out of lessons involving these books. Now, in March of 2023, the school district changed its policy, eliminating opt-outs for any reason.
In the most recent video that you actually sent out to parents, you inquired of us to address bullying issues and safety concerns in the schools. Those are our priorities too, but how are we supposed to do it if you push us out of schools? Yet you have flip-flopped your story. Wednesday of last week, you told the news that you were honoring opt-out for many parents in this room. How does MCPS 24 hours later expect to flip-flop, stating that we are no longer to opt out of these LGBTQ books that go against many of the family values in this room?
I have made an effort to attend this meeting to convey two messages. The first message is to anyone listening that is also concerned by the agenda that is deliberately being pushed on our children. That message is this: if you are tired of poor stewardship and the peddling of harmful information to our children, our future generation, there are other options for you and for your children. It's worth exploring for the sake of your children.
So, not that long. I think in sales they call this the foot in the door method, right? Oh, we'll just put them, they'll be here, but your kids don't have to be exposed to them. You can opt out anytime, no problem. They'll be here, though. It'd be nice for other kids to have access if their parents want to have that opportunity for their children, but not yours. Your kids certainly wouldn't be forced to do that. That's November of 22. So fast forward a couple of months, March of 2023, they changed their policy, eliminating opt-outs for any reason. So there were three sets of parents who decided to step forward and fight this, along with the parents' rights group Kids First. So they sued the school board and the superintendent, Thomas Taylor. That's how we get the name of the case, Mahmoud v. Taylor. They argued that the no opt-out policy violated their First Amendment rights to free exercise of religion and their right to direct their children's religious upbringing. Lower courts said no. They said, nope, they don't find any coercion, no concerns with this material and your religious beliefs. We don't agree. So they upheld the school district's decision. Court of Appeals upheld that May of 2024. Supreme Court agreed to take the case in January 2025.
And then I guess I am a bit mystified as a lifelong resident of the county, how it came to this. Can you just tell us what happened when in March of 23, what happened in terms of the objections and how the school board responded, to give us a little bit?
Well, I share your concern. My kids graduated, two of my kids graduated from MoCo and were opted out when they asked on their own accord to opt out of some instruction on sex education. And what happened is, we're not even entirely sure, because for the entire first year, the board promised in multiple places on Fox News and other media that parents would be notified and then they would be opted out. The last notice happened on March 22nd, 2023. The very next day, overnight, with no explanation, the board came out and said, we're changing the rule because we want all students to be instructed on inclusivity. That's at 547 in the appendix. That emphasis on all students have to receive this instruction. Nothing about administrability. And then from there on, even then they said, if we've already told you can opt out, we'll let you do that, but more parents can't ask. And then it wasn't until later in the year when they actually revised their guidelines, which still allow certain religious opt-outs and just not others. So this was clearly targeted at religious parents objecting.
But then complaints were raised, right?
That's right. Hundreds of parents complained. These were mostly, according to the news articles, mostly families from Muslim faith and Ethiopian Orthodox who were objecting when they spoke to the board. The board accused them of using their religious beliefs as another reason to hate, accused a young Muslim girl of parroting her parents' dogma, and then accused the parents of aligning with racist xenophobes and white supremacists. And so, again, there's no question in this case that there is a burden, that it was imposed with animosity, and that it's discriminating against our clients because of their religious beliefs.
Oral arguments were in April, and then just a couple of days ago, June 27th, the court ruled 6-3 in favor of the parents, granting a preliminary injunction to allow parents to have opt-out for any reason. This case, I had heard about this during the arguments. So Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, in the arguments, she argued that you don't have to go to the public school. Here's your opt-out. You don't have to go to these schools. You can send your kids to a private school. That was her argument. The vast majority of people are able to put their kids in private school, so just go put your kids in private school and don't opt out of these things. And of course, you know what happened back in November of 2022. They implemented this, I guess, testing the water or hoping maybe or whatever. And again, it's in sales, it's called foot in the door. You just get in the door, just offer a little deal, I just want to show you a little something. We'll put these on the shelf and no problem. Don't worry about it. If you don't want anything to do with it, then that's fine. They'll be there. And then you relent and say, okay, well, at least my kids aren't forced to do that, so it doesn't bother me. And then they flip the script on you and say, yeah, we're going to change the policy. Everybody's forced to, and now you're stuck. Right? I guess you could have fought it initially that you didn't want those in the school at all. But I guess most parents are hoping that the administration is on their side, on everybody's side. Let's have some common sense here. Yeah, have those materials available for kids who want, whose parents want their kids to be exposed to that stuff. Great. No problem. But then when they force it down our throats, we all need to do this, that's when we have a problem. And of course, a couple of years ago, this probably would have gone a different direction. So the pendulum is swinging back towards reality, normalcy, common sense. So I'm happy about that. So that's the first case I wanted to bring up. So the second situation that makes me feel like we're coming back towards, the pendulum is swinging back towards reality, common sense, is that the University of Pennsylvania has agreed to strip medals, titles from Lia Thomas that were won during the 2021-2022 season. Now, that's 4 years ago, right? When Lia Thomas was allowed to be on the women's swim team. University of Pennsylvania also issued apologies to the female athletes affected by her participation. The decision came today, July 1st, 2025, and it stems from a resolution agreement with the U.S. Department of Education prompted by a Title IX investigation under the Trump administration. All right? So, great. I'm happy that this is happening. Like, we finally get some official acknowledgement that Lia Thomas is not a woman, was never a woman, should not have been on the women's swim team, should not have been in the women's locker room. So there's acknowledgement there. But you know what? You can't unring that bell. Okay? These women who missed out being on the podium, being involved, being able to participate, all of that stuff, you can't go back and change that now. So their college experience was affected and changed forever, and we can't go back, right? So, again, you can't unring that bell, so an apology doesn't really do it. And part of this that really frustrated me when I was looking into it was like not only was it dastardly that they allowed a man on the women's team to take medals and to place and whatever, and compete and knock women out of the competitions and off the team or out of being able to actually swim. But he was in the women's locker room naked in front of these women, exposing himself, claiming to be a woman, but obviously not. And when I looked at that, when I heard about this, and my initial knee-jerk reaction was, well, that sounds along the lines of some sort of sex crime, like allowing a man in the women's locker room and then allowing him to be naked and to see women naked and just saying that that's okay. We as the school, we allow this, that there's got to be a crime there. Now, I'm sure that the statute of limitations for anything that they could come up with, because it wouldn't be like a sexual assault or anything like that, exposing themselves, allowing, aiding and abetting. I'm sure the statute of limitations on anything like that long expired before I even knew about the details of the case. That's the part that really irked me, and I'm not involved. I didn't have any family members or anybody involved in this, but that was the part of this that really irked me. The whole thing is terrible. It just, again, for the pendulum to have swung that far to the left and just, into outer space, and allow for all this stuff to happen. And then for people to be called bigots when they called attention to this and said that that's not right, that was crazy. But as a school, as an NCAA caliber school, to say, we're going to, you women that we're supposed to protect, and men too, we're supposed to protect them, we're going to, force a man into your locker room, and you're going to deal with it because he claims that he's a woman. So there's some other things here. So Lia's victories, I don't know. The biggest thing that came out of this, of course, was Lia versus Riley Gaines, and that the tie for 5th place, and the craziness around the trophy and all that, which really kind of sparked this. She was the catalyst for this thing. Anyway, Lia, he's gonna lose all his medals and titles and all that kind of stuff, and I guess they're gonna go back and figure out who should have gotten all that stuff, and then they're gonna give, after the fact, retroactively, 4 years later, they're gonna give them to the women who should have won them. So pretty anticlimactic for them, but it's something. So that was the second case of we're coming around. There is a lot of craziness out there, but there are 2 things that give me a little bit of hope for that we're swinging back to the right side here. The pendulum is swinging back to normalcy, reality, and common sense. And we're only 6 months into the first year of this term, so we'll see what else comes of this. But okay, that's it. Thanks. This is Steve Loomis with Walking That Mile.